Hello and welcome from Penn Cinema in Wilmington, Delaware. This is Holly Quinn, lead reporter for Technically Delaware. And this panel for the Fall Brawl is From the Games to Degrees. We're going to be talking about opportunities for gamers with college scholarships, college majors and things like that, opportunities that maybe you or maybe your parents don't know about. This is going to be available on YouTube after this. So if you watch this and you realize your parents need to check it out, so they believe you that you're not wasting your time, that you can stream it from there. So we've got a really great panel here. We have Derek Pugh of what is it? I typoed here.
Data, Holly.
Yes, thank you. David Hughes of Georgia State University and Christopher Turner of Southern University and A&M College. Let's everybody we'll go around and do introductions. Let's start with you, Derek.
So I'm chairman and CEO of Arena Data. We provide complete esports solutions for high schools, youth development organizations, and colleges. We also run the oldest and the largest esport college combine, which is coming up in the third week of October this year. We run that with Indiana Sports Corps, who are the partners of the NFL for the NFL Combine. And I said we started doing this when only about 70 universities were offering full scholarships for students, and now we're in close to a couple hundred. We've had about 500 students who played through our platform and get college scholarships. So very excited to be here.
Yeah, and I believe that there's an opportunity with the players today to be a part of the combine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's exciting. Okay, let's go to David.
Hey everybody, my name is David Hughes. I currently serve as a clinical assistant professor of sport management at Georgia State University. Prior to that, I served as a visiting professor of esport at Shenandoah University, which is one of the first universities to offer academic programming at the master's and undergraduate level in esports. And I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. And then Christopher, hi.
Hi, how are you doing? My name is Christopher Turner. I'm the director and head esports coach for Southern University, Southern University Laboratory School, which is our pre-K to 12th grade school, as well as coordinator for Southern University Law Center's Mixed Reality Virtual Innovation Gaming and Esports Institute.
Awesome. I think this is going to be a great panel. So we're just going to start with the questions. So we're going to go around with this one also. Each of you fulfills a different role within the esports industry, even though you took different paths to get there. Where did your education start in esports or otherwise, and how did you wind up in gaming? And go ahead, David.
Okay, I'll start first. So I started off working in the NFL, and then I transitioned into academia. So that's how I started teaching sport management. So in the journal peer-reviewed articles, there was this debate going on. Is esport a sport or is it not a sport? And it was going on for years and years and years. So as I'm reading it, I just thought to myself, who cares? Like, it doesn't, like, it's cool to, have some banter, but in reality, what is more impactful are the jobs that will come with esports. So whether you agree with esports not being a sport because you're kind of afraid it might cut into your revenue, which is why I think whether the debate comes from, or you want that market share. I looked at it as this is an opportunity to get students involved to increase our graduation, retention rate, and job placement rate. So I went full into esports starting from the debate of, is it a sport or actual sport? I just chose to embrace, it's here and there's a lot of jobs available in this industry. And so we need to embrace it. And that way we can kind of position ourselves as the leaders and authorities and help our students out.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people appreciate how many jobs there are, like how many different kinds of jobs, esports, I guess career pathways are possible. So, and we'll be talking more about that. But on the same question, how about Derek?
Well, so I started in esports about 10 years ago when I was working with the Major League Gaming guys that they had just spun out of ESPN, and they were working on building a sports desk for ESPN. That sports desk is now part of Activision Blizzard. And so that was my first touch into esport. At the time, I really was thinking about it just as a spectator sport, beyond what was going on with the athletes. And my oldest daughter graduated college about 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, and came to me and asked me what career path she should choose. It wasn't esport, unfortunately, but what I told her was she needed to look at what the world was going to look like when she was 40, which is what I think young people that are watching us need to think about a lot. Not necessarily think what the world looks like today. And so I needed the weekend off, and I came back to her and I said, look, when you're 40, people are going to move in and out of virtual reality and non-virtual space without even thinking about it regularly, and they're going to make money in both. And that collision between virtual worlds and non-virtual worlds is really was the basis for the foundation of Harina when we founded it. And Harina was really trying to create metadata scoring systems so that kids could find kids that they better matched with in teams, so that colleges could do a better job of recruiting kids. But where it really comes out, I think, from my perspective, is that this esport is not its own standalone thing. Esport is a highly integrated thing. And if I look at a young person and they do ballet on the side, or they do baseball on the side, whatever they do from an extracurricular basis, and that was how they learned their leadership skills, their teamwork skills, and everything else. And esport is just yet another way of doing that. And in a lot of ways, it actually integrates into things that they're doing in the traditional world too. So we're at very, very early stages of really understanding how esport touches and can augment pretty much every aspect of somebody's life, regardless of whether their primary concern is doing something in a more traditional space, or their concern is doing something in esports space. There's ways to develop yourself and your skills and who you are as a person in a virtual world and a traditional world. And I think that's the future. So that's basically why we're involved and why we founded Arena.
Yeah. Christopher, same question.
Yeah, grew up a gamer. Been was an entrepreneur. Still am. Got into education around almost 9 years ago. Just saw the draw. I had a gaming club maybe 4 years ago at a previous high school. Saw all the soft skills. Saw the communication, teamwork, the sense of community. Of course, saw the career pathways like we've all mentioned already, and just implemented a program 3 years ago at the high school that I'm at now, and the collegiate level as well. So that's a short story of it all. Since then, has been some great stories that I would say was untold, but just a great space to be in, aggressive, and I have to say kudos to Derek for saying that esports is just a small variation of like the whole gaming ecosystem, and it's bigger than just esports. And so, just look forward towards the panel.
Yeah, that's sort of a good segue because I my next question was really about that pipeline from middle and high school to colleges and universities, and so we know that there's a lot of colleges now. I know here in Delaware, University of Delaware is one of them. They esports teams, esports majors, and all different kind of gaming. My son majors in game design at Wilmington University, and so a lot of schools, including a lot of HBCUs are starting to really incorporate that into their program. Um, how is that pipeline being built from, middle and high school into universities? Like, I guess, what are a few examples of letting kids know that this is something that they can do, like literally, like the jobs exist, that can be developed from gaming.
I think COVID did a great job in pushing that to the forefront because everybody was at home.
Hmm.
And everybody got kind of educated. If it was just, a small snippet on ESPN or whether it was primetime television, they saw some sort of esports competition, whether it was NASCAR,
Mm.
2K League, or whatever was on at the time. But I think we still have a lot of work to do. Derek's created a great platform. David has done great work. I think everybody on this call has
Hmm.
pushed towards the mark to educate. I think that's the main thing, especially in minority communities where we were told to get off the game that is not anything that
Hmm.
it would lead to anything.
Hmm.
So, um, just going forward, just going out, activating the community, whether it be education, whether it be small tournaments, whether it's virtual conferences or panels like this one where we're able to build content and constantly send out to the masses. I think that's the quickest way.
Hmm.
And we have to be honest, a lot of the minority communities are playing catch up.
Hmm.
We weren't able to afford nothing but councils growing up. Some of us still do. So we have to catch up on the PC style of
Hmm.
esports. And so, with all that said, I think we're going in the right direction. I just want to see a more holistic approach and not just tournament heavy. But how
Hmm.
can we educate? How can we get more universities signed on and implement? Because right now, you're growing from the top down. You're growing from pro, university, high, middle, when all other traditional sports was grown the other way.
Right, right.
So, I wish I had all the answers, but I
Yeah.
don't. But I'm gonna lean on David and Derek.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say like this panel sort of spread out around the country. We're not all in one place, and I'm wondering if you see esports in the high schools around where you live, in any way, whether it's competitive or clubs or anything like that.
Yeah, you're starting to see the expansion of more clubs in high school. So I think as of maybe a year, 2 years ago, esports started off in like 6 states, got approved at the high school level. Then it went to like 8, then 9, now it's at
Hmm.
13. So over the time period, you're just going to see it expand more and more. And
Hmm.
so, kind of like how Christopher said, it's kind of working backwards. The more high schools it goes to, eventually it's going to have to trickle down to middle schools, and then maybe youth leagues.
Hmm.
We don't know. I don't know if they'll have it as an actual component outside of like if you're at like a robotics or STEM school elementary, but with it going to so many high schools, eventually it's going to go down to the middle schools because principals and the educators, they talk with each other. And if this is one way to reduce detention, gauge interest or boost attendance, then it will ultimately have to be modeled at the middle school level as well, especially if they're in the same district.
Hmm.
Yeah, Chris and David just said so many intelligent things here that I think I want to sort of echo and integrate. One of the really unique things to me about esports, at least that we see, is that this has been, aside from what Chris said, which it got its recognition, I think, with like adults because of the high end, because of esport at the professional level, which is different from other sports that started in playgrounds and worked their way into becoming professional organizations. But the nice part about esport now that I think is really unusual is how strong youth are driving it. So a lot of times the clubs that are in high schools are driven by the youth first. Like it's not necessarily that the administration of the school has made a decision about it. The youth are driving some club. What I see a lot of times at the collegiate level is a college saying, hey, kids are coming to us and saying, well, what's our esport environment like? Whether they want to play varsity or they just want it as a social vehicle, rec vehicle, or whatever it happens to be, it's important to them. And they've really been driving this as much as anything else, at least in what I've been seeing. So the really great colleges at this that we've worked with are really interested. I think this is a point that Chris made in trying to figure out how to integrate it completely, not just make it some sort of tournament play platform, but really begin to think about how does it work into curriculum? How does it work into alumni affairs? How does it integrate with traditional sport? How does it work into the social system of their school? How does it work to create league play? How does it work to promote the school? Like, whether it's content creation, whatever it is. And, people like Chris and Dave are basically in the trenches of that. They're the people that are activating that as the adults in that space. But there's definitely this youth movement that's pushing it. And I think now you're starting to see it, a lot of the administrations, they're used to old teaching models. So this is very new to them. And it's hard for them to go out and find people that will come in and not say, I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm just going to show you all the things you can do. And I'm going to support you. This is what our company does. Support you in trying to get to where you want to go. I'm not going to dictate how you're going to create a conference. I'm not going to dictate how you do play. It should be about, like, how do you organically view this as what you do for your students? Because you're a youth development organization. We're just going to show you all the ways you can do it and all the ways you can create revenue around it to support it. Because the other side of COVID is most schools, colleges don't have great budgets this year because COVID really hurt things at the collegiate and high school level last year. And they're just starting to come out of it. So you sort of have this like rush up of the video gaming piece of it, not really great budgets for it, some scrambling around the knowledge base, and it's all sort of formulating into every variety that you could imagine of how high school programs are running and how college programs are running, and then how the two are interacting. And all of us here on this conference call try and figure out how to make that a more like uniform way so that kids know how to go from step A to step C or J or Z or wherever they want to go.
Yeah. And that sort of leads into like the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is those scholarships, which I know like Harina does a lot with the combine and getting kids seen by recruiters and things. But it's how do like actually not how, but what is out there, like what is out there for scholarships, like, because I don't know that a lot of people know that there are kids and young adults who are able to, like with football or anything else, get like a whole scholarship to go to college through esports. A lot of people don't know that. And I know that, like, when I have covered esports for technically in the past, and I've gone to University of Delaware, I always felt at that time, this was before COVID, so this was a little while ago, but that there's sort of an information, I don't know if gap is the right word, but they were recruiting the mass majority of their people from overseas because it wasn't so much like as known as it was, in Asia and parts of Europe. And so they were doing like a lot of their recruiting there. And I think a lot of it had to do with maybe it not being taken as seriously in the United States as a professional pathway. But what is out there, like what are the possibilities if you have a kid and you're kind of doubting that this is real, that they can get a full a scholarship or a full scholarship, like that's real, right?
No, it's totally real.
Mhm.
So I would, let's look at this full scale. Your pro scene is your top 1%. That's saying that you're LeBron James or whatever said game that you play. 1%, top 1%, right?
If if 1%.
Yeah, if 1%.
There's 2.5 million gamers out there. I think it's like
Being honest. Yeah. So from a university standpoint, yes, you do have universities recruiting across seas because that's the mothership. That's where the culture will start, right? That's where it festered. That's where it grew the most. Going forward, though, I would tell, if I have 2 girls that are in 10th grade, I would tell them right now, if you know how to do content creation, if you know how to do production, if you know how to take pictures, if you know how to do video, those type of skill sets, you know how to build community. Like those are the skill sets that I look for as a head coach and as a director. I need help.
Mhm.
I don't. Derek just said it. We don't have help at the higher ed level, at the high school level, middle school level, because this is new. It's new to education, rather. And so we depend on the youth that are part of the culture to help us run these arcs and to help them, go into these tournaments and conferences and wherever other opportunities. Like I've been an advocate to get some of my students paid. I call them my inner circle, but to get them paid to create opportunities for them, and like in return, they're working their behinds off. And so I don't want a kid to say, "Oh, I'm an avid gamer, and I don't think that I can be on a competition team." You might not be able to make the competition team or varsity team, as we said, but you still can be a part of the arc and make a difference and grow with that particular university.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree. I say first you need to, if you're a high school student or a parent, you need to research the school to make sure that they offer scholarships, and if so, how much. So at Shenandoah, we're a Division III school, so the amount of money we could offer is not going to be like an Auburn or a UGA. So I think that's the first thing. And then also, Christopher kind of touched on it, is there's a practice squad and there's a varsity team. So once you make the varsity team, it's just like, traditional sports. If you're a starter, you're going to have to practice multiple times a day. And so attending varsity meetings is, kind of funny because uh, a student, might be in a study group for chemistry, um, biology, math, calculus, whatever. And he's like, oh, no, I have practice tonight. And so practice, what are you practicing? He's like, oh, on the varsity team, I have to go to the gaming center and game. So, some students, even on campus, might not quite get it, but when you're a scholarship athlete, you're going to have the same requirements of you as if you're swimming, playing lacrosse, football. So don't think just because like you're really, really talented enough to get a scholarship. Once you come in, you play a couple of times, just at the tournaments and that's it. No, it is something you're going to have to practice daily. You're going to have to get in sync with everybody. And it is probably, if you're not used to playing on a team, it can be a difficult transition because a lot of the games, you're playing by yourself, but now you're going to have to learn how to play on a team with people you've never met in one room. So it's fun, and that's why you have to practice the plays.
Yeah.
Says.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, and it's again both great points, is I think there's three money channels here that people, parents, kids that are looking at college need to think about. And the times they are changing, right? The NCAA is now different than it was. I played collegiate sports and I had to sign an NCAA letter when I played collegiate sports. My name, image, likeness rights were all owned by my college. I could make no money while I played at college in a traditional sport. At the particular school I went to, the only way I could have gotten a scholarship would have been through an academic scholarship. They didn't give sports scholarships. But in the brave new world, and it's changing for traditional sport, to Chris's point, a good player can be making money before they get to college, right? It's very, in a lot of ways, more than they could if they were a traditional sport player. And the reason for that is just simply viewership. A top League of Legends player at the collegiate level might have over 1 million followers watch them play every time they play or more. It is a significant potential influencer style role that you can play as a player. So that's number one, to Chris's earlier point, and that you can start doing before you ever get to college, right? And honestly, I think high school should be thinking about how to start teaching kids earlier about things like content creation, marketing, promotion. This whole business has moved to a much earlier age now because it hits as soon as you decide to go on Twitch with your friends and you're playing, or whatever platform you're using, and you're starting to show off that you're playing. You've become an influencer at that point. Once you have one person who wants to watch you play, you're already an influencer. And that started at a very, very early age. And a lot of those young people are teaching themselves how to do whatever they're doing online to market themselves. At the collegiate level, I think there's two. I mean, to everybody's point, there are well over 100 colleges now that offer some form of scholarship, usually directly related to play onto a varsity team. That's a good news, right? That's a lot of colleges. The other piece of it is, and you'll hear a lot of the colleges say it, being good at esport, even if you don't get that scholarship money, might get you academic scholarship money if you were also a good student in high school. So it's just one more thing that gives you a reason to be able to gain access to maybe some money pool that's at college. So to me, it's three things: yourself, to Chris's point earlier, content creation; academics, that's yourself too, right? When you're in high school, it is just as important to get good grades if you're a gamer as if you were any athlete. You're two equal athletes. One's got better grades, the one with better grades and maybe common sort of personality traits that fit into a team might get an offer over the other one. Thing here. And then the pure on scholarship. That the one thing that I would say that I don't think Chris or Dave mentioned is colleges tend to focus on a couple games. You have to be good at those games to play, right? If you think about it, like all colleges who choose to play football. Video gaming is thousands of games,
Right.
but the college scene is coalescing around smaller targeted number of games, usually League of Legends, usually Rocket League, usually Overwatch, maybe depending where Activision Blizzard decides to go with that. And then some platform of one of the sport-based games that's run off of EA or 2K or one of those crew. Those tend to be pretty common. There are other games that are played, but those are really the primary ones.
Yeah, that's a super important point. um, and this is all really, really great advice for young gamers. I think that there's the two targets for this, and one is obviously a young gamer, and the other is the parent. And I think that a lot of this information is definitely also geared toward parents. What can parents do if they have, to support their child if they are serious about this being their sport, to the point where they're looking at possibly, you know, wanting to go after scholarships, things like that.
So tune into Fall Brawl.
Yeah.
Learn about the industry, like I said before, but um, you know, support your kids just like you support them in football, baseball, soccer,
Mhm.
whatever other traditional sport it is. Learn as much as you can. YouTube and Twitch is a great tool.
Mhm.
We have search engine now. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but you can search anything and
Mhm.
gain information. Reach out to people like us on this panel. On LinkedIn, Twitter. This industry is like open. Like
Mhm.
we're humble. Uh, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I know I'll respond if I get a message. But just do your research, get connected. To Derek's point, build your child's brand. That's real important, and not just from a gameplay perspective, but show them who they actually are. Good grades counts, personality counts. Like we're looking at it from a holistic approach as far as a person. I know I do. A lot of programs do. So it's not just, hey, how can you fit on this team? But are you okay with this team? Are you toxic? Are you non-toxic? Do you know how to communicate? Do you know how to treat others? Like all of those questions come up. So just, you know, helping your student be the best student they can be, and I want to kind of piggyback on what Derek was saying about those games. There are particular games, and that's something that I fight for every day being part of a HBCU. Like we don't have accessibility. Like a lot of my students don't have accessibility to those free games. So as an industry, we have to do better. We have to have more accessibility to some of those games. Like we do have leagues that offer console gaming, such as your quote unquote sports games. But for my group of students to get in the ring with somebody that's been playing, Overwatch for the last 10, 15 years, and they just picked it up 2 years ago is not fair. And so we got to do something better in that arena.
Mhm.
But besides that, let's start as early as you can. if you're that good, you're gonna get selected. If you're not that good, you still want to be around the industry. You got other career paths, and those are like wide open too.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say, support looks different for every individual. So I would more so focus on, you tell the parents look at it as an investment and look at transferable skills within the gaming industry or within gaming, right? So will your son or daughter need a PC or a computer eventually? Yes, so that's an investment.
Mhm.
Are you going to buy them a headset, some games? It could be seen as investment, but you also might want to maybe get a program, get an app where they can learn how to code, or they can maybe do some IT work on there as well. That's kind of self-taught, or maybe you could ask the varsity coach or somebody, the computer science teacher to help as well. So you can do it and support in esports is going to be different because usually the child is going to be home or they're going to be with somebody else. So one, you're going to actually see them, so you don't necessarily have to be gone that much. Two, you can actually play with them. That is something, if they want you to do, that shows that you're invested, right? So if you want to actually support them, invest the resources and don't look at it as, okay, if I buy him this computer, he has to get a scholarship. He or she will need the computer eventually. That'll help the academic work, right? So that's an investment, better grades. And then, the programming that you can put on the computer will be a lifetime investment, right? Let's say your student doesn't go on to get a varsity scholarship, but he's really into coding or computer programming or something in the IT field or cybersecurity because you have that computer. So it almost makes sense not to invest in your child if they're interested in esports, because ultimately it's going to help you 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And, just play with them, show that you're actually interested, and it's okay for them to consider, gaming as a future.
Yeah.
Those are incredible points. And I think if I were talking straight to parents, because those core issues are so critical, I would talk a little. I mean, the only thing I could really add to what you guys just said very eloquently is sort of, well, what does it mean for your child going forward? And well, yes, maybe it means getting into college and help them get into college. There are life skills that if this is how your child wants to learn them, as a parent, you need to say, I get it. I get you're learning life skills in here. And there are certain games, honestly, that have better life skill teaching potential than other games. Your child is going to wind up drifting to games that they're good at. But in multiplayer games in particular, the way those players have to communicate with each other, the kind of teamwork that they have to engage in, the moving from being a leader to being a follower to being a teacher to being a student as they play, the sacrifices they have to make in order to do things like both Dave and Chris talked about, training. This is a lot like training like any other sport. And it does require things like mindset, all the things you can think of for traditional sport. You can't just sit and stare at a computer all day. You got to get up. You got to be in physically good condition. This takes a lot of metabolic energy to like play a video game for an extended period of time. You need internet energy, stamina. You need mental grit. You need all kinds of things. And I wrote like an article on LinkedIn that a lot of people passed around to their kids. That basically what I said was, look, imagine this: your child is, first of all, you can't see race, socioeconomic station, religion, or anything in a video game. You're an avatar, right? You could be anybody in a virtual world. And you could be playing with someone from Korea on your team and someone from South America on your team against someone from Germany, against someone from Russia. It doesn't really matter because it's all in this virtual space. But you have to like discern their differences, how they're going to react, how you're going to support them, how you're going to play with them. And if you think of what the global economy is going to look like, 20 years from now, who's in a better position to be able to make really good business decisions quickly and effectively than a gamer who's been involved in making these like very rapid paced, sort of all-encompassing decisions regularly with teammates, learning how to do that as a team. That's going to be the next generation of leaders. That's going to be the next generations of politicians. It's going to be the next generation of everything. And I think if parents really get that, they're going to see that the cost of that PC over something else they might have bought instead is that much more important. Or the trying to support your child and playing that particular game might be that much more important because this happens to be what this child is good at, and this is where they're going to wind up excelling and growing as a person. Anyway, that's what I wanted to add to those 2 points.
Yeah. Oh, great points. And I think one thing that some parents who don't game themselves, at least not the same kind of gaming, and it was sort of touched on, like, go to Twitch, go, watch the streams, because I think if as a parent and your kid's really into it, if you understand how to watch the games, it's a lot more fun. Like, you get into it, so then when they're playing a tournament, you'll understand why people are cheering and you'll have a good time, and it'll be more like maybe like a traditional, like a football kind of experience. And Yeah, I mean, there's I think even little things like that, that just maybe can make the parent get it a little bit more, and going with them to the tournaments and things like that. um but um yeah, I think like it's really incredible. And I am also interested a little more, like, um if you could share a little more detail about the combine, like, that's literally like a place where gamers get scouted.
Oh, for us, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was when we first put together, so Harina's core product originally was something called GeoScore, which was metadata for gamers, which I talked about briefly when we started. And what we didn't realize was how important that was going to be to colleges, because as probably both Chris and Dave can say, it's actually hard to find your gamers sometimes, because the only way you might know them is through an avatar. There's no linking to an email. You don't know much else about them. And someone needed to fit in that space. And I would say that even now, we're not amazing at it. We just try and keep getting better every year at it. So the combine last year had about 100 colleges, including like the Big East, MEAC, number of individual schools from around the country that have good esport programs. They're just trying to get into esport programs. We peaked at about 6,000 kids at the height of last year's, and last year's was the first. So when I say we're the oldest trained, because we actually coined the term combine ourselves, first launched GeoScore for the purpose of esport. And we started running combines every month. This year, there will be more colleges, more high schools involved. There's already hundreds of high schools that are involved in the combine this year. And I think just as what's fun to see is last year, there was a young kid who didn't think they were going to get into college this way, who came in and literally blew everybody's doors off in Rocket League. It just fun to watch. And when you talk about, like, it is difficult without playing League of Legends yourself to watch it. It takes a while to really understand the subtleties of League of Legends play. I would almost say Overwatch in its own way, even though it's become much more popular on TV because it's first-person shooter, is a little difficult to follow just because of that, unless you play it. Whereas Rocket League, it's kind of like soccer with cars or rockets, and so it's not that hard to get your hands around, and you can get excited about almost right away as a parent. So we had this young guy who came on, and in the middle of his second match, he got 3 full scholarships. Literally 3 colleges pressed a button to get in to talk to him right away. And I want to say, maybe, I mean, you guys are both know, so it was West Virginia, I think, has a really good program. One of their not their, it's not their primary location, it's one of their satellite locations. I think that's where he wound up going, but he was blown away because he showed up, wasn't really thinking anything else. I was getting a college scholarship to go to college. So this combine this year, look, I encourage, it's free. If you're a high school kid, it's free. Go, have your parents go and watch it. It costs you nothing. There's a lot of colleges there. There's smart people on the panels, just like this panel. There'll be a lot of coaches like Chris that are there that are looking for kids. We'll be providing access to our Geo database for all those kids that wind up playing in, want to play and get their profiles on board with us. We're starting to introduce other things like the same kind of cognitive and athletic profiling features that you have at a like an NFL combine or any other sport combine around the country. We're going to start offering those tools. I hate to say it, they're not cheap. They're not absurdly expensive. It's like $100 to get your kid tested, but that's not cheap, right? But there are other things that you're going to be able to add on to your child's profile that again are new to this world and will be new for the colleges, and they'll be able to see things that they haven't seen before. Yeah, so please, anybody who's interested, it's free. If you're a school kid or your parent, go and learn, because there will be several hundred colleges there.
Wow. Yeah, we'll definitely put that information on the YouTube. Make sure that we have and everybody's information to whether it's links to your programs or whatever. Make sure that we have all that to put under the YouTube video, so that people can either reach out to you directly or just reach out to your programs and have access to those resources.
I'll just add one more thing. It is definitely increasing with HBCUs. So we were working a lot with MEAC. MEAC's just great. We've been starting to work with other conferences. Everybody needs to figure out how to make it work for them and how it makes sense. And each conference has its own struggles for wildly different reasons, right? Like a Penn State that makes a ridiculous amount of money off of football every year has a very different perception of esport than say Coppin State does. Totally different perceptions.
Yeah. So I don't have any more questions, and I think can you check if there's any questions there? Thank you.
Wow. I'm gonna find out, is Chris going to be at the conference?
Well, I took that as an invite, Derek.
You too. I'm not leaving anybody out. I want everybody at these combines. And look, there is work that Chris and Dave, I hope we connect a little bit after this, because there are unique things to both the HBCUs and also some of the high schools that feed the HBCUs that need to be addressed. And I think there are things that collectively we can really help work on. I think you raised really great points.
Yeah, this is my take on this is my overview on that. I feel like, of course, I made the mention earlier that culturally we're behind on some games, right? But it's the first time in history where it doesn't take $100 million. It only takes $100 to $200,000. You see what I'm saying? So I don't really, even though I'm at an HBCU, I really feel like this is the first time in history where we don't have to separate a PWI and an HBCU. We can just all play under one umbrella. And gaming allows that. It's not like, we have to have, like I said before, the $100 million facility and we have the best trainers and all. No. For the first time in history, we have an equal playing field here. We just need to catch up on some of the games.
If you think about it from a visibility perspective and a notoriety perspective, I mean, I was sort of blown away when I first went. You guys we all know that Harrisburg University is a really, very good program. And I was there for a conference maybe 3 years ago, and I ran into a young guy who was had a varsity jacket for HarU on. He was a League of Legends player, and he was from a small town in Canada. And I asked him some questions about hockey because I'm a hockey fan. And he literally looked at me like I was from a different century.
Oh,
and
wow.
He was like, hockey, like, do you have any idea how many people watch the Stanley Cup? And I really had to guess, but his average viewers were more than the average viewers to the Stanley Cup. And he's like one kid, you know what I mean? So you get a really great athlete into any of these schools and they've got this huge following and they're wearing that school's uniform. That's going to be all over the world.
Yep.
This is not some kid who plays that game in the Philippines is going to idolize that kid, regardless of what college they go to. And you don't need 52 of them on a football team. You need.
You don't.
10, 5,
Mhm.
how big. So it's such a game changer in terms of creating an equal playing field. And you can think about what that does even for the academics and the enrollment for those schools. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. I think it's still kind of stealthy, in the United States anyway. Because it's the same thing with the NFL that there's higher viewers, I think there, I forget what it was compared to, but I know there's some big esports uh tournament got more views in the Super Bowl. So but people don't really necessarily act that way outside of the esports community, but it's there. It's like
And I think, and I'm gonna say this, and this is not being disrespectful. I think we feel that way in our age range, but the ones that I teach on a day to day, it's normal to them. When I look over
Mhm.
shoulders in the classroom, they're looking at gameplay. They're
Yeah.
not looking at NFL, first take, anything
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
or even the news. You're not looking at daily news. They're looking at gameplay.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I think it's
Yeah.
definitely a generational thing where it's really, really hard, I think, for a lot of people in say like the Generation X, which I'm in. It's like it doesn't compute, I think, a lot of times with the older generation, but that's the one who needs to be supporting this next generation. So it's like, there's that's one issue, but I think, it's definitely coming around. Like there's not going to be any doubt. I really thought that with COVID that esports was going to have its huge, like, just as a spectator sport, was because, like, you can't, well, especially when they couldn't have people in the stands and things like that, I was like, oh, this is like the perfect time to put esports. But I know it's sort of like David said earlier, there's money. Like, are they ready to, like, put esports on instead of NFL? Obviously not, but
Right.
you
And then another point too, like from a virtual sense, right? The infrastructure is there.
Mhm.
It's no question that it's there. I think the physical locations need to catch up.
Yeah.
So like, you have the esports arena in Arlington, which is the biggest one that we have in the United States. But then you have facilities like Surge that are about to be built in Chicago. And so when you get these full immersive experiences and technology and lights and all that kind of stuff, I think from a traditional sense, then you're gonna get buy-in from the other side of the coin.
Mhm.
And those two are gonna collide. You see like AI mixed reality at NFL games now. Like it's our new norm, just like COVID's our new norm. Like
Mhm.
it's just gonna be the inevitable. I mean, you're just gonna have a mix of culture, and
Mhm.
I look forward to it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll say this: if you look at what the NFL did last year with broadcasting the game on Nickelodeon, they do understand that they're losing their grip on the youth.
Mhm.
So that's why I said other leagues are aware, which is why I think they get so much pushback on esports, is because once a father or mother passes down the love of gaming to their son or daughter, that is a lifelong customer you just lost. And that's something they've never expected to compete with. Because if you like football, you're gonna probably like baseball, basketball, you might want to go to all three. But if you're really into gaming, you might not want to go check out any of them. So yeah, I think I'm not gonna say go as far as say propaganda, but I think that's why there's a lot of pushback from the other communities in regards to kind of embracing gaming. Yeah, it's a disconnect, but I think it's more so business driven.
yeah, I agree. And to that point, my daughter is in the other room playing video games right now.
Mhm. Well, we're getting to the wrap up time. I don't know if there's like anything that anyone wants to add before we wrap things up. I think this has been an amazing panel, really informational. I'm probably gonna write something also with some of the advice in technically sometime next week. Technically Delaware. So that information will also be on the YouTube. And yeah, I really appreciate everybody participating in this. And I think it is wrap up time. I think this was a successful panel.